went for the first time to Amiens in the spring of 1991 with great trepidation. I found a city I'd never heard of, a place where precisely nothing was going on. I'd worked in over 60 countries as a photojournalist, but I felt something was missing. My pictures were good enough for the market, but they weren't really good enough for me. There seemed to be a lack of subtlety, and with this project, I started to use a 6x7 format, that became the British format, and it was a real revelation. I could start to resolve the gentler in-between tones. And from the seed of that lack of action, I realized that what I needed to do was to simply look and try to remove from the equation the plans, the storylines, the juxtapositions that have become the standard toolbox of the photojournalist. I was searching for a kind of authorship that could sustain me throughout a whole career, and I finally felt I'd found the way forward. All the fear of explaining, of expecting things to happen, were replaced with the excitement of simply looking and discovering. The smallest things became the largest, and I no longer needed events. I could make photographs literally anywhere. After that, I took it on the road and applied that same approach to everything I've ever done since. So, just to end, I would have to say merci, Amiens.
After a decade working in Central America, I wanted to follow the path of the Feet people, those who were crossing the US-Mexico border illegally. I started with a Leica and color film, which didn't feel quite right. So I shifted to black and white, but still couldn't capture the theatricality of the experience. Then I came across a wide lux panoramic camera. It was the first time I used a rotating lens which could swing 140 degrees. It was like dancing. The lens was moving, I was moving, and the subject was moving. The camera became a perfect match to the unpredictability of what was unfolding. An arrest is a stopping, leaving a life suspended. I photographed their hiding places and only hoped they had made the journey safely.
I owe my photographic career to the cruelty of the CIA and Ronald Reagan during the Cold War. You can proceed with the photographs. I decided Ronald Reagan at the time was turning Central America into a landscape of burning villages and dead bodies, and I decided to follow my conscience and discover it for myself. The popular media was not, either when I got there I realized was misportraying what I believed was happening, or at least not stating my opinion. So I decided, after doing a couple of oral histories on Central America, human rights books on Nicaragua and Guatemala, and a couple of poetry books and a music CD, a music LP I should say, to become a photographer. And I did my first book in El Salvador. also looking for, I guess, a little bit of beauty and dignity in the cobweb of deceit. And I moved from El Salvador to the Middle East, and more recently Afghanistan, with much the same convictions. Thank you.
I started photographing in 1967, but I became Bruce Gilden in 1981 when I began using flash. This is when I came to realize that since I could not be better than Henri Cartier-Bresson, I could be the best at being Bruce Gilden. Leaving behind the sedentary and open backgrounds of Coney Island and ready to face the streets of New York City, I decided to use flash, work very close, and use my athleticism and my abundance of energy to photograph the city.
About the time my son was born, my father became very ill, and I found myself reflecting on various very obvious themes of life and death and sort of the seasonal nature of life, and I begin, like any father, just photographing my family, photographing my son, and was never occurred to me that this would actually be a body of work. But I started seeing something in the pictures that I think I had always wanted in my pictures, a certain emotional intimacy. And up until this point, photography had been a ticket for me to escape, to get away from who I was supposed to be, I guess, this preacher's son in Texas, and I was looking in other places for something that, looking for that in the far away exotic places, and for the first time I actually found myself photographing my own experience and my own family. And it's as if everything I'd photographed up to this point was just to prepare me to make these pictures, I think.